Hi, welcome to Lachlan Likes a Thing, a show where I take a thing and see whether or not I like it. Now the thing we're looking at in this video is the Sennheiser HD25 professional monitoring headphones. Now firstly, I want to give a big thank you to Sennheiser for loaning me a pair of these headphones. I actually haven't had a chance to have a good listen to the HD25s up until now, and for a headphone enthusiast like me, that's a bit of a secret shame because the HD25s are a bit of a legend in terms of portable headphones. They are actually a professional headphone. You often see them used in broadcast environments and in professional DJ environments. But I guess that kind of street credibility has meant that the HD25 has become a really popular option for portable casual use as well. And actually, I often get asked how I think the HD25 compares to some of the newer portable options on the market. And that's really remarkable considering that the HD25 is a 25-year-old design now. So I guess there's something to be said for good engineering. So I've had the HD25s for about a month now, and if you follow my Facebook page, you know that recently I went on a trip to Tasmania, and the HD25s were the headphone that I decided to take on that trip. I originally didn't actually like the HD25s very much because I just found them a bit uncomfortable, but after using them in a variety of situations like on a plane or out and about in the city, I've actually come to see why the HD25s are such a popular headphone for portable use. So first of all, the HD25 was originally targeted towards professional users, so it has a very industrial, very practical, no-nonsense feel to it. And that kind of means that I have to say that the plastic finishing on some of the HD25's edges, some of the surfaces is a bit rough. And it definitely doesn't have the same kind of premium feel to it that something like the Sennheiser Momentum or the Audio-Technica ES700 does. At the same time though, these plastics mean that the headphone has a really light weight of 140 grams. And at the same time as being lightweight, the HD25 feels incredibly durable. Even though this is a review unit, I really feel like you can really toss this headphone around, kind of twist it and do anything you like to it, and it will survive. Recently, at a headphone meet, I was able to talk to a friend of a friend who is a DJ and who actually owns a pair of the HD25s, and he was able to tell me that the HD25s do have a reputation in the DJ community for being an indestructible headphone. And considering how roughly DJs have to treat their gear sometimes, that's a really good sign. Part of what adds to the kind of workhorse reputation of the HD25 is that every part of the HD25 is replaceable. There are parts available for the ear cups, for the headband, and the cable itself is detachable as well. And all of the parts can be replaced by a user. You don't have to bring them in for servicing. You can just buy the parts online and replace them yourself. Regarding the HD25 cable itself, it's actually a steel cable, so it feels extremely durable. But one thing to note is that it's a bit like a steel wire, so it will develop kinks if you bend it too far, and it will kind of tangle if you scrunch it up, so that's one thing to watch out for. On the other end of the cable, you have a really chunky straight angle jack, and so that's one thing to watch out for because the jack is quite long, so if you're going to use it in your pocket with a portable player, it can get a bit inconvenient. The HD25s have a split headband, which means that you can kind of wear them like a normal headphone, or you can split the headband for maximum stability and comfort on the head. When I got the HD25, a number of people asked me how it compared to a similar headphone, the Beyerdynamic DT1350, and so I managed to borrow a friend's pair of the DT1350s, and although I haven't had a chance really to have a good listen to these, I have to say I much prefer the split headband system on the HD25 because on the DT1350 the headband is actually spring-loaded, so it snaps back in place, and it means it kind of flops around. You have to readjust it every single time you take it on and off, and also it has a tendency to kind of grab onto your hair and eat it. In comparison, the HD25 is much less fussy to put on and off, and I much prefer this system. So in terms of comfort, the HD25 was originally made for environments where noise isolation and stability of fit were top priorities. So even though the ear pads are quite soft and cushy, the clamping pressure on the HD25 is very high, and so they exert quite a lot of pressure on the ears. The split headband does kind of take the pressure off a little, and the whole headphone feels very steady on the head. The noise isolation is incredibly good, which is something that I really appreciated on the plane trip to Tasmania. But I did find that I could wear these for about 2 hours before my ears would start to get a bit sore. They're definitely not as comfortable as other consumer headphones like the Sennheiser Momentum or the Audio-Technica ES700, but they are about as comfortable as the Beyerdynamic DT1350s, and they are definitely more comfortable than the Beats Mixer, which was another DJ headphone that I looked at earlier. So how do the HD25s sound? Well, for a headphone that's been kicking around for a quarter of a century, I was really surprised at how much I like the sound of these. Now, these definitely have a very warm, quite aggressive tone to them. They have a really robust, kind of chesty low end with a kind of mid bass kind of emphasis. And the top end, the kind of treble notes are quite aggressive. Everything sounds very lively and very exciting, and it really excels at rock and kind of electronic music. One thing that I have to really mention is that the bass on the HD25s is some of the cleanest bass that I have ever heard on any headphone, bar something like the LCD2. And that's kind of reflected in the very low distortion figures on the HD25, especially at higher volumes. Again, these were made for DJs where they kind of have to be able to hear the beats when they're mixing at very high volumes, but what that translates to is that the sound of the HD25s, even though it is not as wide or as spacious because of the bass emphasis in the sound, it definitely is very clean and very tight, very fast sounding. And I think this is a really lively and exciting headphone to listen to. Compared to similar headphones, I think in terms of sound signature, the HD25 lies somewhere in between the DT1350 and the Beats Mixer. The DT1350 on first impression sounds like the far more balanced, more neutral sounding of the headphones. So if you wanted a more neutral sound, I would look forward to the review I'm going to do of these. Otherwise, compared to the Beats Mixer, I think the HD25 definitely sounds a lot tighter, a lot cleaner. It's less bassy than the Beats Mixer. The soundstage is not quite as spacious, but overall I much prefer the HD25. Now, on a final note, a lot of people have asked me how the HD25 compares to the Sennheiser inferior, which is basically the same headphone as the HD25 except with aluminium ear cups and lower impedance drivers for portable devices. Now, I think that any modern music player can supply more than enough volume to the HD25 with the normal 70 ohm drivers, but more importantly than that is to know that the Sennheiser inferior is now a discontinued headphone, and it's been replaced by the Sennheiser HD25 Aluminium Edition, which is the same headphone as the HD25 with the same 70 ohm drivers, except with aluminium ear cups and different ear pad materials and different materials on the headband. And so one of the first things I'm going to do after finishing this review is to try and get my hands on an Aluminium Edition HD25, because I'm really interested to see how those changes affect the sound. So overall, I really like the HD25s. They're not the most comfortable of headphones for longer listening sessions, but I really love the phenomenal bass response on these. I really like the lightweight and stable fit, and I really like the idea of a headphone that you can just kind of toss around and not worry too much about breaking. So if that sounds like a good idea to you, then definitely check these out. Anyway, thanks for watching this review. Recently I hit 1,000 subscribers, which is just awesome, and I really appreciate it. If you want to help me make more reviews, you can like this video and like my other videos and subscribe to my channel. You can also talk to me on Facebook at facebook.com/LachlanLikesAthing, or you can tweet to me at LachLikesAthing. Happy listening.